We're beginning some breaking news from Russia. A new wave is rising from the depths. Silent, unstoppable and nuclear. Russia unveiled its latest doomsday weapon, the underwater drone Poseidon. Russia has successfully tested a nuclear-capable, nuclear-powered underwater drone. This is Moscow's second test of a new nuclear weapons system in just a few days. President Putin confirmed the test, calling it a new generation strategic system with no possible interception.
Of another promising complex, the Poseidon unmanned underwater vehicle, also with a nuclear power engine.
This is not just another torpedo. Poseidon is a monster of the deep, over 20 meters long, first tested in 2018. It is capable of carrying a nuclear warhead of up to 2 megatons. It is designed to travel thousands of miles underwater, undetected, and strike with apocalyptic force. Powered by a miniature nuclear reactor, it can remain submerged for months, cruising beneath sonar, nets, and ocean defenses like a ghost. Its mission is to deliver a nuclear payload powerful enough to trigger radioactive tsunamis and wipe out entire coastal cities. Analysts are saying Poseidon is part of Russia's second strike deterrent, a weapon that can survive any nuclear exchange and still hit back, launched from submarines or hidden underwater silos. It transforms the ocean itself into a weapon platform. Putin on Sunday oversaw a test of another advanced nuclear-capable weapon, the Burevestnik cruise missile, which he said had an unlimited range. Trump called that exercise not appropriate.
Текущую обстановку, сложившуюся.
Разрешите начать движение?
Разрешаю.
The new weapons testing marks Russia's second major nuclear-capable system trial within days, doubling down on a new generation of super weapons. The undersea battleground has quietly become a front line in an unseen nuclear race that could redefine warfare and global security. Peter Kuznick is a professor of history and director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at American University. He is now joining us live on this broadcast. Professor, it's good to see you. The detail is in the message that Putin is trying to put out to the world. He's tested 2 nuclear-powered drones. We're talking about the Burevestnik and now this submarine. What do you think Putin is trying to do, and why is he doing these tests now?
You have to add to that the deployment of the Oreshnik missile back in November, and the announcement that the Sarmats are about to be deployed also. Putin is clearly sending a message. After the Budapest meeting between Putin and Trump collapsed, and then the indication that the United States has given authorization to Ukraine to use some of the American weapons to strike deep inside of Russia, including Moscow, Putin is making a very, very strong statement. Peskov had said that if they strike deep inside of Russia, if Ukraine strikes deep inside of Russia, the effect could be devastating, that Russia is going to respond very, very decisively. So Putin is making clear that if Trump does not accept Putin's offer to extend the New START treaty for another year when it expires this coming February, then Russia is going to continue deploying these terrifying nightmare science fiction-like nuclear weapons and missiles that would be simply inconceivable, the destruction that they could wreak.
Professor, what's your view on the Burevestnik and now the Poseidon? Because apparently they can, withstand the speed, they can stay on the air, they can stay under sea for days, very quickly.
In Putin's State of the Nation message, May 1st, 2018, he announced that Russia had 5 new nuclear weapons, all of which could circumvent U.S. missile defense. That seems to be the case. When the Oreshnik was tested, former U.S. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster said that the U.S. would not have a response for at least 15 years. So Putin is in some ways getting ahead of the United States. Trump talks about this Golden Dome missile defense system. Well, this is going to make a mockery of Trump's plans. So what the world needs to do clearly is step back off this precipice, because we're getting closer and closer to the nightmare scenario that we've all dreaded for most of our lifetimes.
All right, Professor Kuznick, it's good to see you. We'll have to end it there. Thank you for talking to us today.
All right, earlier tonight on Truth Social, President Trump announced that he has ordered the Department of War to start once again testing nuclear weapons and wants that process to begin immediately. He said the new testing program is in response to other nations testing their weapons. Here with a lot more on that as we await the start of this historic sit-down between the president and President Xi of China. We have Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas with us. Senator, good to have you. I can go back. I'll read the entire statement because I think it's deep and I think it's profound and I think it's important. And I think it really is a moment that we better pay very close attention to. And as blunt as the president was, he was blunt here. The U.S. has more nuclear weapons than any other country. This was accomplished, including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during my first term in office. Because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but had no choice. Russia is second. China is a distant third, but will be even within 5 years. Because of other countries' testing programs, I've instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process begins immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Your take on that?
Well, Sean, I think President Trump is once again reflecting sentiment that President Reagan had in the 1980s. They both regretted the necessity of nuclear weapons. They dreamed of a world in which we might not have nuclear weapons. But as long as adversaries like communist Russia back in the day, and today Russia and communist China have nuclear weapons and they're rapidly expanding their arsenal and they're testing their weapons, the United States can't afford to unilaterally disarm. That we have to make sure that our nuclear arsenal is second to none, that it won't be overmatched by the combined forces of Russia and China, that our aging weapons are still usable, and that our new weapons are designed and made properly. So I agree with what President Trump has announced. It's only sensible that in a world when Russia and China are threatening the United States with a rapidly growing and novel nuclear arsenal, that we have to take steps to defend our way of life, because that's what our nuclear arsenal does. It truly defends our way of life.
It really does by every measure. I will tell you this, if you look at your screen, it looks like the motorcade, President Trump has already arrived moments ago. It looks like the motorcade, I have to assume of President Xi, is pulling up now as we speak. And this historic meeting, it is, I can see a Chinese flag on the front of that car. And again, on the agenda, the importation of American agriculture, specifically soybeans, TikTok, rare earths, tariffs, the importation by China of Russian oil, and I'm sure issues involving, Taiwan and other issues around the world, fentanyl, a lot of heavy things on the table. I did talk to the president briefly. He seemed optimistic, but he lives for these moments. He loves to sit. He loves to talk. He loves to negotiate.
Yeah, Sean, what you heard from the president earlier today is what I've heard from him in the last week or two as well. He has our farmers close to his heart, our rice farmers and soybean farmers in Arkansas, for instance. He's very worried about our manufacturers who've had lost so many jobs over the last few decades to China. He's worried that China has developed genuine leverage over the United States in some critical points like rare earth elements that are so vital to modern manufacturing. China has done this by waging economic war against our farmers and our manufacturers and our high-tech industry for decades. For too long, we turned the other cheek and didn't pay attention to it. We acquiesced to it. Thankfully, President Trump is not doing that. He's standing up to China. You and I, and frankly, no one can know exactly what will be accomplished this morning because, as they say, nothing is settled until everything is settled. But fortunately, President Trump is going in clear-eyed and hard-nosed.
It looks like that's Monica Crowley greeting President Xi, if I'm not mistaken. I'm only seeing the back of his head, but I'm assuming that is him and his delegation out of the motorcade now entering the building where President Trump is awaiting, who had just arrived a little bit earlier. You know, it's very interesting in the lead up to all of this. You know, there's been a lot of posturing, a lot of back and forth. One of the issues that really stands out to me, rare earths are way more important than I think most people know. You would know because of your position in Congress and in the Senate. And that is, it is imperative, for example, magnets for auto manufacturing. It is imperative for our military development and equipment. But leading up to this meeting, the president did make a huge rare earth deal with 3 countries. He made it with Australia, Japan, and now South Korea. That gave him leverage. I believe all of these maneuvers, you know, put him in a much better negotiating position, no? I mean, of course, the development here domestically.
Yeah, no doubt, Sean. And it was great news today that the president and President Lee of South Korea reached a big trade deal. That's going to be great for American farmers and ranchers, our manufacturers, our defense industry. And as you said, it is going to give the president more leverage if we have more avenues to import rare earth elements and their finished components from countries like Australia and Japan and South Korea, which is, say, friendly allied nations. Again, it's unfortunate that for too many decades, America ignored China's growing leverage in some of these places. President Trump is committed to eliminating that leverage, to making sure that we have supply chains for vital products that are not dependent upon China. So today's news about another trade deal in South Korea is a great gust of wind in our sails as President Trump sits down with Xi. And again, I know that we can't say exactly what's going to happen. Nothing is settled until everything is settled. But I know that he's going in very clear-eyed and hard-nosed in defense of America's interests.
You know, we've had real concerns about the algorithms and the makeup of TikTok. That's going to be a big issue as well. It looks like that deal is kind of, at least on paper, laid out where I assume that China will pay us a certain amount of money for that. And I assume that we will control the algorithms as it relates to it working within the U.S. Would you assume that as well?
Yeah, Sean, that's what the law calls for. Congress passed a law last year with overwhelming majorities. It wasn't a law to ban TikTok. It was a law to try to force TikTok to break its ties to communist China. And you put your finger on the critical question, control of the algorithm. Will control of the TikTok algorithm be in the hands of its new American owners and engineers, or will it remain in the hands of communist China, the parent company ByteDance? If it's in the hands of Americans, then it's really just another social media app like Facebook or Instagram or X or what have you. But if it remains in the hands of ByteDance, which is ultimately answerable to the communist Chinese regime in Beijing, then that means it remains a potential tool for communist Chinese propaganda and for data theft here in America.
Yeah. What do you think as we look at, you know, all these discussions that are going to be going on, you know, do you believe that President Xi will be trustworthy in any deal that he makes?
Well, I think, as Ronald Reagan said, President Trump would probably agree on this point, too. We have to trust but verify when you sit down with a communist leader like Xi Jinping. They have a lot of leverage over the United States, unfortunately. We've worked to reverse that leverage in the first Trump term and now this year as well. But we have even more leverage over them. They need access to our massive consumer market. They want more access to many of the products that we make that they can't make. So I think President Trump has a lot of leverage going in. I think it's important that we maintain that leverage through any implementation of a trade deal, whether it's struck today or in the weeks ahead or in the months ahead, to, again, make sure that we trust but verify.